Thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us, and we're going to hear tonight why your time's extremely valuable and important. And if you're wondering why you are here, why you should be here, and why we would love your full attention tonight, is you're going to learn some techniques to assess and improve your time management. You're going to find out what Toyota can teach sheep farmers, and I'm very intrigued to hear what that is. And to quote, we're going to find out what's helped the most chaotic bloke in Perthshire manage his time more effectively so that you can too. Those are his words, not mine. Okay, so labour. This is what we're going to focus on this year. And in my opinion, it's something that we don't discuss enough in this industry. We just hear far too often that farming's a way of life, and it's commonly accepted that we work well over 12 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's just considered the norm within farming. For many, it's a really sociable and great industry to be in, but for some, it's often lonely. For many in more remote areas, it's isolating. Sometimes it's tiring, and sometimes it can be quite a thankless task. And some people do struggle with that. And we're often hear that businesses are increasingly finding it difficult to get reliable and skilled workers and more importantly, retain them. So quite often that results in some difficult family conversations surrounding the future of the business or a certain enterprise in its current form. So it is a really important thing, as we've got in the title there, it is your farm's greatest asset. Without the labour, you've got nothing. This is a 3-part series, and we would love it if possible if you could join us for them all, so that you go away from the end of this with the full toolkit that will hopefully help you drive some real meaningful changes within your business. So, I thought I'd start off as well with what this series is not about. So this isn't about telling you to move your indoor lambing outdoors to reduce labour. It's not about telling you to sell your Texel or mule ewes to put on easy care ewes. This is about giving you some tips and tricks for your business, regardless of what your system is, regardless of what breed you've got. We want everybody to be able to go away with something that they can look at and focus on for their future. Now, finally, just before we move on, I would like everybody to have a wee look at those questions on the screen just now, and I'm going to launch a poll. I want you to have a wee think about your system. How labour efficient are you? Do you think your system's easy to operate? Could it be better? Could you simplify it? Are you relying on additional labour for some of your bigger handling tasks, lambing or seasonal work? Do you get off farm enough? Do you have a good work-life balance? I think most importantly, do you enjoy working with sheep? I know a lot of people that, a lot of marriages that they say the main cause of potential divorce is a day out working with sheep, whether it's family members or staff. And do you ever actually sit back and review after a long day working with sheep what went wrong or what could you make any better? 6% of you have said that you're labour efficient and you've got a good work-life balance. 70% think you manage, but there's room for improvement. And 24% say that your labour demands are high and your work-life balance suffers. So you're all absolutely in the right place for this evening. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce our speaker for this evening, Michael Blanche, farmer, consultant, podcaster. I don't know, Michael, if I got those in the right order.
Well, the consultant is a really loose term.
Okay, so we'll go farmer, podcaster and consultant. So for anyone who hasn't heard of Michael before, why he's our key speaker for this evening is you'll see on the screen there that he's produced a podcast series on the Pasture Pod, his own podcast, called It's About Time. It's a very thought-provoking and interesting podcast, and if you've not listened to it, I definitely recommend that you go and look it up. But I'm not going to steal your thunder, Michael. I'm going to hand over to you. If you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you asked yourself, is time really a subject?
So, yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to actually come on to this. You're probably on your phones doing some Wordle stuff. But I really appreciate, because that's important, isn't it? So you've decided to spend some time thinking about time. That's a good start. So I am Michael Blanche. I'm a first generation farmer. I'm probably going to be a last generation farmer. I'll speak a wee bit about that. Hazel asked a question in the run up to this that absolutely floored me. And that, what do you think they will learn from tonight? And I tell you, it did floor me because I don't look at it like that. I'm not sure if you learn anything, but what I really want you to do is look at things differently and maybe reassess and maybe think about things. I'm just pointing at something so your awareness is a wee bit higher. It's like raising awareness and not about the dried fruit, raising awareness. That's a good, I think that joke went down well. I'm imagining people laughing. Right. So what the train thing is a metaphor for time because a lot of these webinar series are about actual facts and things that you can touch and experience, feel. And we talk about lots of technical stuff in farming, and we talk about lots of financial stuff in farming. And it's really quite, you can see it. Time is more of a concept, I would argue, and it is far more invisible. And we only see it at certain points when we actually think about it. So I saw a quote the other day where in 2 days' time, this is a quote, in 2 days' time, tomorrow will be yesterday. And we are on an unstoppable train, guys. You can't get off. There's no stops to the final destination. You know what I'm saying? So we've got to make this train journey really, really good. So that's my introduction for you. So as Hazel mentioned, I did do a podcast thing. It's called It's About Time. It was a six-part series. If you've listened to it, that's fine. I usually ask anyone listen to it, and very few people put their hands up. But luckily, I can't see you, so that's good. Essentially, the podcast thing was the series was based on three main things. The first was personal. I've mentioned I don't go on about it much, but I'm a first generation farmer, and I've got a really good relationship with my landlord. But come 65, that's the end of the tenancy. I did get an extension, but it's one of those modern ones. So we've got, at the time of the podcast, we had 12 years left. And I'll be honest, as a first generation farmer, I started with nothing and I've still got most of that left. So we, I really have to, there's an urgency about it. 12 years is not a lot. It's like 12 lambings, 12 calvings, 11 disappointing forage crops. It's very finite. And actually, we're down to single figures now. I've got nine calvings, nine lambings left. It's not a lot. And you've got, I really am. I mean, to say I'm papping myself is maybe the wrong expression, but there's an urgency there. So the second leg of the stool for this podcast was some of you will be, and I know I've had a nose and I've seen some attendees, and there is one that I know is part of this, the Shedding Sheep Facebook page. Now it's a private page. You might be not you might not be cool enough to be on it, but the Shedding Facebook page is. I mean, I just get my popcorn out. I'm just a lurker. I don't actually contribute at all. But uh, there was a lady that put on the fence shedding sheep Facebook page. Guys, I have launched another Facebook page. It's called Save British Farming. I'd really appreciate if you have a look and join. And there was a little bit of pushback and saying, what does UK farming need saved from? And then a little bit later, the Australian entered the chat. It's an international group. And the Australian, unusually for Australian, he was really confident in his own opinions. And his name was Andrew Freshwater. He'd never been to the UK, but, and I'm going to do the accent, so beware.
From an outsider looking in, UK farming has to address labour efficiencies as a matter of urgency.
And he went on to talk about, he actually did the maths. And, the labour efficiency in the UK was not good enough, and we had to really make it work. And unless you base your business on 5 to 6,000 ewes per labour unit, then that's going to be a problem. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure, now one of you might put me right, but I'm pretty sure there's no one in the UK that runs 5 to 6,000 ewes per labour unit. Now, there's plenty with 5 to 6,000 ewes or over, but not per labour unit. And that caused me to get very angry. And then there was a stage, it's a stage process. And then after a little bit of couple of weeks, I thought, well, how can they do it and we can? So that is a question that started the thing. And then the third leg of the stool was a lady. I'm not sure if you remember when Twitter was good. And Twitter had this really cool account called Farmers of the UK. And the essence of that account was every week a farmer used to take control of that account and tweet about their farming lives. And it's overwhelmingly positive. It was a great account I really enjoyed following it. And then in January, I think 2022, there was a lady who took over that account called Kath Morley. And you know what? It was incredibly refreshing because she runs 130 Holsteins uh, inside on robots, um, all year round milking, obviously, and with her husband Chris, and she spoke about the relentlessness of what dairy farming can be. She spoke about not having any time. She spoke about working 13 hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to leave the farm, having been called back by the robots, feeling absolutely tied to this thing, this system that they had. And they were actually really good farmers. But I thought that told a story. I thought that told the story. The crying in the calf shed, I thought, this actually, maybe it's again an extreme example, but I think this happens on British farms and Scottish farms. So those were the three things. And what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to tell a few stories. I normally tell more, but we haven't got that much time. But essentially, these stories are stories of choices, and they're stories of decisions that you make. No one else, it's what you do. You can't, um, you know, contract out your responsibilities here. Okay, what's really important, and I love you to actually think about this, but the stories of what we see and what we actually don't. Now, what we think is reality and what actually is reality, I would suggest is different. And all you need to do is take a farm group around your farm and see your farm totally differently as an example of that. I started every podcast episode on this series with a quote from Gandalf, who was obviously a real person, and he said, "I'm going to do the accent again. I'm sorry for this, but he said,
All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us.
all we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." What if that is the most important thing in life? Because arguably it might be. Okay, so we're going to have a game. We're going to have a game, Hazel. So this is the first poll, right? This is game one. I want you, as an illustration of people seeing things differently, I want you to count the number of F's, F for Freddy, in this sentence. And I will give you, I don't know, we'll give you what, 30 seconds or something? So we've got people that see things differently, right? So normally I use a show of hands if we're actually speaking and looking at each other, but three is the most common answer. The actual answer is the 4%. Got it right, which is there's only one person, so that is six. And if you look at that sentence again and look at the word of, those that have three will probably see six now. Yeah, look, it's just it's an illustration of you've got to be careful what you think is real and what isn't, and seeing things differently. It's a great quote from a regenerative rancher called Don Campbell, and he said, "If you want to make little changes, you change the way you do things. If you want to make big changes, you have to change the way you see things." And I just love that quote because it's so true. Anyway, right. Okay, so I'm not going to get hippie on you, but the shaman of South America, apparently, the South American tribes, say that and this is again is how you see things. Uh, there's the four levels of perception in life. So they equate this to South American animals, of course, and birds. And so the condor can see like the big picture, right? So he or she is flying and can see right everything from his vantage point or her vantage point. And then the hummingbird will have a different perception of what can be seen. It's not, it's different. And then the jaguar again will have a different perception of the jungle. And then the snake will be in the weeds, seeing things again in a different aspect. So what this is, and I know what you're thinking. This has got nothing to do with time management, but what we will tend to do is you go to time management seminars and you do little techniques which you try for 2 days and you don't do them ever again. What you have to do is tackle the fundamentals, okay? So this is deeper than just using a 25-minute timer to do your cattle passports. This is different. It's absolutely essential you get to the fundamentals. So what I'm gonna on the things on the right, I'm gonna talk about little stories of what hopefully will illustrate the different levels of perception. Perception, purpose, priority, and patterns. And there's a fifth P, which I think are processes, but we'll maybe come to that. So the first one is perception, right? So I don't expect you to do this, but I would normally ask you to shade in. You'd have a piece of paper in front of you. You can still do it now if you want. You can draw some lines down and lines across. And ideally, you would have 80 to 90 squares. And I would ask you to shade in up to your age. And the reason for that, of course, now, I actually used to have only 80 squares, and then people over 80 started coming. And it got awkward. So I added another 10. I think the life expectancy in the UK for a male might be, I think, 83. And for a female, that's 85. So that's, if we're lucky, we could get to average, couldn't we? And maybe a lot of us will go further, but some of us won't. So what I'm saying is you might find that initially depressing. If you shade up in, especially me, I mean, I'll shade in a lot of squares, but what it's meant to illustrate is you will have blank squares. You've got some time left, and what you really need to do is focus in and make the most of those squares that are left. So you've really got to figure out how to do that. And I think there's a whole philosophy called finitude behind this, which is actually the realization, the awareness that things are finite sets you free. It's not a bad thing. It's not a depressing thing. It's actually a really good thing because you absolutely make sure what you have left is full of good. Okay, so the second P, if you're paying attention, is purpose. So there's a great book called If The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, needless to say, I have none of those habits, but it's a really good book, if a little dry. But the quote is, if the ladder is not leaning up against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. Now, there's other metaphors and for example, if you set course from New York to England and you're 1 degree out, I think you hit Ireland, which, might be quite good, but it's an accident. You've got to, you are just a little off course, and it makes a big difference at the end of the journey. The lady on the right, now, she has got thigh-length leather boots on. I apologize for that. But her name is Debbie Millman, and I bet you've never heard of her. But Debbie Millman is a big deal in graphic design. If you walked into a supermarket at some point in time and all the branded products, she would have had her fingerprints, what she was behind 20% of that branding. 20% of all supermarket products. She is a heroine in graphic design. Now, she lectures now in the New York School of Visual Arts on the last day of her undergraduate and her postgraduate courses. She gets them to do an exercise. It's to visualize 10 years from now. So we're on the 21st of October, 2025. We want to go to the 21st of October, 2035. And I want you, and you could do this. I can send Hazel the details she explains it much better, but you've got to visualize just like the tiniest of details. So waking up, what's the bedroom like? What are the sheets like? Who are you with? Dream big. And what are you doing that day? What's your house like? Where are you? What are you going to do? What are your dreams? What do you see when you look out the window? Lots of little things. Now, these students will write between 4 and 20 pages of trying to do this. And I swear to God, it is so useful to spend half an hour, make yourself a coffee, go to a coffee shop and do it. And what you find, and she says, the uncanny thing is 10 years after she's done this with her students, she gets messages saying, "You will not believe this, but," and it's not magic. It is not magic because you have absolutely quite a clear vision of where you want to be. Now, this can change. You're not imprisoned by this, but you've got this clear vision of where you want to be, and you're making micro decisions. Remember, it's stories about decisions. So you're making micro decisions with that in mind. And that is really powerful. You then put your ladder up against the right wall. Okay, priority. Now, another little story. This is Warren Buffett, and his personal pilot asked him, how can I get my life in order? What do you think? I just feel I've got too much on. I can't concentrate on anything. Warren says, right, make a list of 25 of your priorities, your biggest priorities, and then put them in order. So circle the top 5. So that's fair enough, isn't it? But the nub of it is from 6 to 25, or the ones that are not circled, you do not go near, you say no to, you just avoid like the plague. And that is so important because you've got, it's saying no to something that you don't want to do is really easy. Saying no to stuff that you kind of want to do is really difficult. And I am convinced that a lot of you will be like this, where you think you can do everything and you get frustrated because you can't. And actually, you were never going to be able to do everything. And you're really bad at saying no. So that's okay. Last P is patterns. So if anyone's done a personality test, some of them you get put into a color. And that's your personality prison, people. Because really, personality, I mean, I can't really speak because I have not got one. But a personality is really patterns. Now, if you're late to a meeting, if you're always late, you will always be late to a meeting. There's a chap in this area who is always the last to get their winter crops in, and he is last every single year. You will, if you look at people, you will become very aware of what their patterns are. And some of those patterns are good, some of them are bad. Now, I would tell you a story about For a Want of a Nail. I don't think I've got time. So I'm gonna, if you, maybe next time, but you will be maybe aware of how missing a tiny nail has huge repercussions. It's like a pebble in a pond. And you see that on farm a lot. So cattle out, sometimes it isn't your fault, but sometimes you could have done something that might have prevented it. And sometimes it is your fault. So maybe it's a latch, it's just a tiny little nail, and then it's huge repercussions, like cattle running through Forgandenny, things like that. Not that they ever did. Okay, so what we're going to do about it? Well, I think a big conclusion is, and this is a very farmer orientated analogy, as you might have guessed, but planting time to harvest time is something I didn't appreciate before. It's just spending a few minutes doing something that will absolutely be paid back tenfold. So I'm going to come to that, but planting time to harvest time is an interesting concept as far as I'm concerned. And then there's two laws that are a big deal in time management, right? And the first is the 80-20 rule. It's otherwise known as the Pareto's law. And Pareto was an Italian economist, lived quite a long time ago. And he found this and got kind of excited because this 80-20 rule pretty much is replicated in all parts of life. He got to the point where he counted in his garden, he counted the peas and his pea pods and found that 80% of the peas came from 20% of the pods. And there's a chap called Tim Ferriss. I'm not sure if you listen to his podcast, quite self-help, very American, but that's not necessarily bad. And he wrote a book called The 4 Hour Work Week, which maybe gives a hint at what he was on about. He was working 80, 90 hours a week on a tech sales job, I think. And he really did feel it was unsustainable. So he took drastic action. He made a list of his accounts and his clients, how much they were worth. And he found pretty much that 80% of his income was coming from 20% of his clients. So 20% of his income, he was putting 80% of his time into it. Now that should ring a bell for UK farmers and Scottish farmers, I would suggest. Parkinson's law is just fitting the job into the time you've allocated to it. Now, this is for the organized out there. And I think Parkinson's law is really important for the organized people. I have a friend, I went into his workshop. I was gobsmacked. I got so excited that it was so pristine and organized and beautiful. And I, what I couldn't understand, he was still interested in time management. I thought, well, how? Why? Because he was so organized. And his answer was one word, and that was procrastination. And the fact that he hasn't got time limits on things because he's so organized actually then has a negative effect. So you've got to set deadlines. Tim Ferriss did that as well, and had significant benefit from it. Now, the thing to say there is you don't want to absolutely stress yourself out with deadlines, but having a discipline to have deadlines is good. Now, we might be doing things right, but are we doing the right things? Is one way to look at it. That my friend Charlie Walker came up with that. I thought that was really good. I thought that was really interesting, made me think. So you might be, I think for me personally, for my personality, I think I'm doing the right things, but I'm not doing the things right. So, but maybe you're different. And of course the band this is a band, an 80s band. I'm surprised how few people know who this is, but this is Bananarama. And Bananarama sang a song, and you're going to join in with me. I know you're a mute. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And that's what gets results. So, Bananarama principle. I think the two things are different. Which one's right, which one's wrong? I actually would argue that the one on the left comes first, and then you really concentrate on the one on the right. So this is my struggle. So I'm, as mentioned previously, I'm totally chaotic, or was, still am a bit. But these are my shed. This is my shed. So the one on the left, I mean, it took me, I swear to God, I'd spend half my life looking for stuff. Even if I spent half an hour a day looking for stuff, I think that works out at normal working weeks in a year. So that is, and the self-talk from that is really negative as well. What, you idiot? Anyway, we'll come to this. So this is the second game, Hazel, and I know we're short of time, but maybe we could uh, do this.
Okay.
And the idea is to count. Because we're short of time, I'm gonna give you 30 seconds here. I'm gonna count one, two, three, four. You've got to find them. You've got to find one, find two, find three, find four. You know what I mean? And then keep on going as far as you can. Right, next, let's do it again, and we're just going to break it up a little and see how you get on. We've got 45 seconds.
On the clock. There's your answers there.
Okay. The above 35 person is really doing well. Okay, so that's fine. It's not right or wrong here, but what I want you to do is we need to get higher, okay? Even the person that is over 35, we need to get higher, okay? So how do we do that? Okay, so I'm going to do one more slide and get to, I think it's 56 as fast as possible, okay? On your marks, get set, go. So obviously you're on mute and you'll begin, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, that's great. Because everything is in order, right? And that is the moral of the story. So clutter, all that sort of stuff, everything is in order. Planting time to harvest time, I think it has some relevance here. So this is what I thought. I mean, this is my shed. I think I've got a video here. So I mean, it's nothing exciting, but that is one of the that is one of the sheds in the previous slides. And everything is visual, nothing is hidden. The shelves are in casters, so I can move them to sweep it out clean. Everything is obvious. So yeah, I just thought if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I know you think, oh, having a tidy shed, big deal. But I tell you, it's amazing what you don't realize you're doing because there is an order. Okay, now I would suggest if you have a chance to read her book or to go on her website, this is a lady called Jana Hawken. She wrote The Lean Dairy Farm, and she used to work at Toyota in Australia and in Europe, and she has taken Toyota's lean or the Toyota production system, as they call it, uh, onto farm. And I am a member of her. She has Q&As and all that sort of stuff. And my goodness, it just shows there's a whole nother level of how you can run a farm. And I rate her so highly. And she talks about lean as is suggested in the title of her project. And lean management essentially is, we talk about a lot of things, the technical things, for example, like, you know, lean is all about moving the product forward. So if you're adding value to the product, if you're adding value to lambs, to calves, to whatever, that is actually what that's important, right? And that's all we talk about. That's all we talk about. We talk about worming strategies. We talk about feeding rations. We talk all about that. But if you take it in a sort of manufacturing process, let's say you have to cut some metal. So the value added bit is when the saw meets the metal. And so basically, the value added thing on farm is when the drench hits the lamb's gut, or when the lamb eats the feed, or whatever. So, but we don't talk about all the whole lot of stuff that is around that. And I'll give you an example. I mean, Lean also talks about there's various forms of waste. So we've got the value added thing, but then we've got uh, everything else is waste. So if we're not adding value, then it's kind of waste. Now we've got to do some things. We've got to get the sheep in, or we've got to move the sheep or whatever. But there's so much waste on farms that you can take out. Now, uh, I've spoken to an absolute nutter guy who's right into lean management. His name is Paul Akers. Uh, he wrote 2 second lean, and if you ever get a chance to look at that or look at his YouTube channel, it's awesome. He says whether you're a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, or a farmer, you are first and foremost not a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, or a farmer. You are a process engineer. So you do processes over and over again, every day, every year. And what we and we're not aware of those processes well enough, I don't think. Anyway, there's various forms of waste. I won't go into it at the moment. We haven't got time, but I would highly recommend a podcast called Lean Made Simple. They're short podcasts. Start at the beginning. I think the first one is Leave It As You Found It. And there's so much wisdom in that podcast. I'd highly recommend it. And they talk about the 8 ways. So what I wanted to do was, if we are process engineers first before farmers, Paul Akers suggests, fix the things that bug you. Fix the things on farm that bug you, that you know this should not be as difficult as it is. So what I did was I took my iPhone and I put it in my pocket and I switched on the video. And I basically did this. One thing was moving sheep across the road. I had to get 4 members of the family who weren't as enthusiastic as I was. And it took me about 40 minutes, and there was a lot of waiting. Uh, Basically moving the sheep across the road, the value added bit, I think took 4 minutes, from actually moving them across the road to the better grass. 4 minutes. And the whole process in total was 41 minutes. So it was, I think, well, 89% waste, 11% added actual value. So basically, a lot of that 89% was me mincing about. It was me not giving clear instructions. It was me having to draw people in. What we've done now is we've spent a little bit of money, and that is a point about infrastructure. It does cost a wee bit, but planting time to harvest time, and even planting in a little bit investment, you won't. That is just a really bad drawing. But basically, what we did was a bypass. We had to go through the steading. This is what took the time. There's houses, gates open, tracks through, into another house. There's bungalow at the end, all that sort of stuff. There was complexity to it. But basically, I just did a bypass around the steading, and it takes 12 minutes, not 41 now. And actually, I did it on my own today. So I mean, I can't tell you how much joy it gives me. Um, Moving to this is, I suppose, thinking about how you manage your time. This is the Eisenhower matrix, and you may have seen it. So we have urgent things that are really important, and then we have less urgent things that might be important or not important. And basically, we are living our lives. I would suggest maybe you aren't, but I think most of us are living our lives in that red box. So what we really need to do is move it to the blue. And again, this is planting time to harvest time. And it's really hard to do. And a lot of it is about priority, and a lot of it is about processes. So what I would suggest, and I would love to talk longer, but it doesn't matter how slow you go as long as you do not stop. A lot of this is our patterns. A lot of this is our habit changing things. And we've got to talk nicely to ourselves rather than do ourselves down. But if you really want to make progress in time management, you've got to do a little thing every day. And these are just things that, the 3 hour job that never gets done because you haven't never got time. I would set aside 3 hours aside each week to do one of them. Make a list of those jobs that really are sort of on in the back of your consciousness that sort of irk away. Make a list of those and set 3 hours aside each week to do them. If it takes less, great. And the other thing is fix what bugs you. Infrastructure is not a cost. There will be people that spend huge amounts on machinery and not spend it on infrastructure. And I would suggest infrastructure is huge in time management. And then what I start to do is I have theme days. So on Fridays, working on the business. Thursday afternoon, every Thursday afternoon is my grass measure. I'll tell you what I did. Um, I think I might have. You see that thing on the left? That is a standard work week. That is from Jana Hawken, the lean management lady. And basically, she has her workers on the same, you can't see it properly, but those are time set aside for certain things. And those sort of bluey things are actual snagging and repairs and doing things before they need done. So all that sort of stuff, get gate swinging, all that sort of stuff, planting time to harvest time. A really good thing if you really hate paperwork or something like that and you're really putting it off, that is the middle thing is a Pomodoro timer. Pomodoro is a time for tomato and you'd set it for 25 minutes. The deal with yourself is I just spend 25 minutes, that's all, and after that I can stop. But the thing that you're really putting off, set 25 minutes on your iPhone, whatever, set 25 minutes and you will find that you can keep going. It's the starting that is really hard. So you trick yourself for that timer. And that is my drawer on the right hand side. I've got drawers like this. My wife absolutely thinks I'm a loser. But those things, I used to spend ages looking for stuff. These are things, everything has a place and there's a place for everything. That is, I've cut holes in this foam so I know exactly where things should be. Maybe I should get help. Okay. Uh, okay, so that's it. Do one small thing each day. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. And if you are really cheesed off with time management, I think you've just got to make little changes day by day. And that's it. Sorry, Hazel, I knew I would be over time and I am.
So if you took anything away from tonight, I think, see if you agree with me, Michael. And I think one thing that's, I liked your, if you want a little change, change how you do things. If you want a big change how you see things. And on the sort of same line, somebody once told me, and if you change nothing, nothing changes. So I think it's really, really important for everybody to review. The majority of the people on tonight said there could be improvements, or further than that, they didn't have the work-life balance that they were looking for. So I would really encourage everybody to go away and, as Michael said, think about the things that you could change, think about the things that aren't working, and really review your systems. So what my key takeaway messages would be from tonight is to set 5 and 10-year goals. It's definitely worthwhile doing. And as Michael said, if you set a big goal, and if you set goals, you're more likely to work towards them. The 5-25 rule, I think writing down 25 priorities and circling the top 5 is really, really useful. Set deadlines, plan jobs, set time aside. Again, I think that's really, really beneficial in the line of work that you're all in. And I did just follow the 2-second lean on YouTube. Is that the right?
Well, I mean, that is really special interest. There's one 35-minute video where they try and get a 1 minute 40-second process down to 35 seconds.
So definitely have a look at that. And the
Made Simple podcast. Yeah, that's good.
Made Simple. Yep. So if you're interested, go and have a look at those things. And again, the final one is that fix the things that bug you. If you go out to check your ewes in the morning and you've got 3 gates with a chain round them or a bit of wire or something, come back in, go and get the tools, and go and make sure those gates swing properly and the pins go in the holes. Just little things like that. Okay, so those are the takeaway messages. There's been a few things said tonight that will lead into the next 2 webinars. So part 2 will be on the 25th of November, which is a Tuesday again, and we're going to look at simplifying the system. So we're actually going to look at what can you do, how do you review your system, and what can we do to simplify it. And then part 3 is a little bit more in the work-life balance and attitude and things like that, mindsets. And we've got 2 really, really good speakers for that night. So again, 2 really, really good webinars to join. And if you can make them, you'll get the registration links out. And if you can't make them, you'll be emailed the links to the recordings as well once they're done. So finally, I would just like to thank Michael for a great presentation, and to the audience for joining us. We hope you've all enjoyed it tonight and can take something away, and we'd really like to see you next month for part 2.